And it looks like the racers are off. Let's see where they're going to go first on this. There's a lot of different ways they can approach this one. Murph is heading left. Jack and, well, no, looks like Jack is the only one heading to the right. Sawa's going to the left as well. Let's see here. Murph got his missile tank, Sawa got a different one. Jack doesn't have anything quite yet. Due to the openness of the map layout, and Jack got the morph ball, that's a good thing for him right off the bat. Based on Novus's layout, things are a lot more open, and it's not so much closed corridors like the original Metroid map. And so there's a lot of different ways they can approach this one. I would actually say that this is theoretically more luck-driven than the original Metroid map, just because of the fact that you could find the morph ball or bombs to be right next to you, or you could struggle and struggle to find them for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, the main two items that the players are going to need to open up the other areas are morph and missiles. Long beam is typically used, but missiles can be used in place of long beam if necessary.
Yeah, but the only problem with using missiles for that is limited ammo that you might need for other purposes. It could cause you to need to do a bit of grinding for ammo. Thankfully, the system for getting additional ammo in this game is a lot better than it is in the original Metroid, where it is literally random on whether you're going to get it or not. And it looks like Sawa just found one of the most important but not quite necessary items. The question is whether he'll be able to get to it. He doesn't have any missiles, so he's not going to be able to go for that one quite yet. But if he gets that, that might actually make a big difference on how this race turns out. So Jack's got 2 missile tanks, and Murph is sitting at 3. Remind me on this. I believe that you do not get additional ammo in this for killing Kraid and Ridley. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the ammo that you would get from them in the Zephyth planet, the original one, is instead just scattered throughout the world as missile pickups.
Right. Sawa and Murph both have the screw attack at this point, and that is going to be a major time saver in dealing with certain types of enemy positions. Looks like Jack had to respawn there. That's probably not going to help him any. Again, you can be really, really talented at playing Metroid and just lose due to the random number generator and your choice of routes not getting you where you need to be.
Yeah. I think in this case, Jack may have been using the respawn feature to quickly switch sides. There's kind of 2 routes from the start, one on
Right.
each side of the ship. So if one side doesn't pan out, a respawn can help in getting you to the other side a bit more quickly.
Definitely agree with you there. It does
Oh,
look like that side didn't work out quite so well for him, but he's not out of the running.
It looks like maybe Murph's having some issues here.
Yeah, looks like he had to stop for a moment. The question is whether that's a technical problem or, well, we'll definitely have to ask him about that later. All three of the players are definitely going for quite a bit of the ammo at this point. That's a good thing. They're going to need those missiles. Not being able to get them from the mini bosses means, oh, Jack whiffed that jump. He might have been able to make that, but it would have been tight at best. Well, it seems all three of them did find Screw Attack. And it looks like Murph has Morph Ball now. And another respawn from Sawa. They're definitely all taking advantage of the fact that they can, in fact, do a respawn to get back to one of the starting points very quickly. Murph showing that he definitely knows how to use the damage boosting to its full potential. And since Murph doesn't have the long beam, he's taking advantage of the missiles to be able to hit those targets from long distance. Well, I should say the destroyable blocks. That helps quite a bit with getting in and out of there. And Murph is not taking advantage of the... Oh, he got the Various suit. He's not using Screw Attack, probably because it's better for him to be able to damage boost than to blast straight through enemies. That's a very, very difficult tactical decision to make. I expect he'll probably want to turn it on for boss fights and extremely tough areas where he really doesn't want to take the damage. But if he can damage boost without it, that's definitely going to work out better for him. Uh-oh, he's running low on health. He's definitely going for a damage boost solution to get up that area. But it looks like he's probably not going to be able to pull that off until he has a bit more health.
Looks like Jack's going to be checking out Bryn Star here in a moment as well. And Sawa's still doing some cleanup there in upper right criteria.
Yep. And despite the fact that it looks like Sawa may be behind, that sort of thing isn't always apparent immediately. Things can change quite a bit depending on what you find and what route you take to get there. And another respawn for Sawa. Seeing some slowdown on Murph's side.
Oh,
And
nice.
Wave Beam.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that'll be helpful. Wave beam unlocks the Ridley area, so if Murph doesn't find bombs, they at least have a way to get in there.
Let's see. Bombs are going to definitely be an interesting thing for all three of them to get to based on what I'm seeing here. More ammo, always definitely something you want.
Looks like someone's going to get their morph ball here in just a moment, which will open things up for them.
Yep,
It's going to
that's
be
a
interesting.
major thing they need.
It's going to be interesting to see if they decide to go to Norfair since they're already on this side, or they'll stick to the potentially safer route of going to Brinstar first.
This for Zebus, I'd say going into Norfair isn't that big of a deal, but in this one where there's the lava waterfalls, that definitely makes it a much riskier proposition.
Yes, it does. The required force damage kind of acts as an energy tank gate, but it is possible to get the majority of the items without any energy tanks, and um, that's especially important to allow for low percent runs, even on hard mode.
Right. I remember you mentioning in the past that you'd spent a lot of time tweaking the layout in order to make item runs more feasible and, well, in general, possible to do.
Yeah. And it looks like Sawa is going for Norfair, and they picked up an energy tank on the way, so perhaps that's why they're feeling a little bit more confident about this decision.
Well, we'll find out how well that's going to work out for them here in the next couple of rooms. I imagine that Sawa would feel a lot more comfortable if they had Varia. Based on what I'm seeing, Varia might be a bit of a problem for Sawa. And it looks like Murph took the backdoor route to get to another missile tank.
Yeah, Murph's decided to head towards Norfair as well, it seems. Which is probably a good call. They haven't found bombs, ice beam, or high jump. And while it is possible to enter Kraid's lair via damage boosting, it's not technically possible to reach the required boss fight in Kraid's lair with just damage boosting.
I have to admit, that little bridge you put in to cross between Norfair and Brinstar was actually pretty well thought out.
Yeah, it does allow for a little bit more flexibility when you're doing your runs. Makes crossing to the other area a bit more of a attractive offer. In the original concept for Novus, the Mother Brain fight was designed to drop you into that bridge area afterwards. So then you would escape through Brinstar or Norfair, whichever the player decided to go through. But,
Was there a specific problem with it that led you to change it?
Ultimately, it just came down to the amount of work to make sure that that would work for all like low percent runs and different things like that. And so creating a more traditional Torian escape just seemed like the better route. It would be interesting to explore something like that and perhaps a later world design.
Seems like Sawa is trying to get into an area back here that has the long beam, but that's going to be a little difficult. Meanwhile, Murph is continuing to go through the bridge area. Probably wasn't comfortable going through most of Norfair with no energy tank, and I can't say I would blame him on that. Sawa found the ice beam, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get that.
Yeah, the ice beam is one of the few absolutely required items in this run, so just knowing the location is already a big advantage. If none of the other players find it, they could be searching a while, spending a lot of extra time trying to find it.
And that's why I say that the more open layout on this makes it a lot more complicated. I mean, somebody who looks like they may be ahead may not actually be ahead, depending on what they've seen, haven't seen, and what routes they take.
Mm-hmm.
That said, none of them have a mini-boss kill yet, so they're all still fairly even. But I would currently give Sawa a little bit of an advantage on having found the ice beam as of right now. Looks like Jack got the long beam. That's going to be a major improvement for his situation. While it's technically not a required item, I would say that it really does help.
Looks like Sawa attempted to get ice beam, but just going in that tube with a little too uh, little energy. So it took a death there. Looks like they're on their way back though. First managing to get into Kraid, I don't believe they have any mobility upgrades though, so it looks like they're going to be attempting this with just damage boosting.
That is certainly going to make this very interesting. Nicely done.
Yeah, some nice damage boosting to get that extra E-tank. They do have Ice Beam. Okay, I missed that. So Ice Beam will allow them to get to the boss fight here.
You can really tell that Murph has spent a lot of time practicing the damage boost.
Obviously, Ice Beam is probably the hardest way to go through this, as it requires a bit of enemy manipulation. But it's still very good.
And as you noted, Murph did make it to the elevator. Well, we'll see how this turns out for him. Meanwhile, Sawa and Jack are going through Norfair.
Yeah. Looks like Sawa's trying to get just a little bit more energy. We're still not confident about that lava dive there.
Nope, got the ice beam. So this puts Murph and Sawa as having the ice beam, and Jack as well, it appears. Does Jack's screen seem to be running a little bit slow for you?
Yeah, I think Jack's having some lag there, which is unfortunate.
Since we are going with the in-game timer for this, it is kind of a little bit of an advantage for him in a way, in that it's like having bullet time. But I don't think that's going to make much of a difference in this race, considering that who he's going up against. We'll see if that
Yeah,
makes much of a difference.
yeah. If the times are really close, then it's something that probably need to be taken into consideration determining the ranking.
Looks like Murph's also having a little bit of slowdown too.
So there's actually two bosses in each layer in the Crate hideout and Ridley hideout, and
Right,
one
you
of
have
them
the
is
class.
required, but the other is optional. It looks like we're going for the optional one just to check the item that might be over there.
There's the optional one. Oh, Murph's going up against classic style Kraid. When you say that they are optional, can you pick one and have that count, or does it have to be a specific certain one that triggers?
Only the larger bosses trigger the Torian gate that allows you to
Okay.
beat the game.
And it looks like Sawa is making an attempt to go for a long beam again, and this time successful. At this point, looking at what they have in terms of gear, I would say that it looks like Murph is definitely having a bit of an advantage. Not quite as many missiles as Jack, but having 4 energy tanks makes a big difference for some of the late game stuff.
Yeah, it's the you want to spend as little time as possible getting extra pickups. But in Novus, the bosses, especially um, the later ones, require a substantial amount of missiles. So we'll see that having those extra missile packs can be helpful as well.
Exactly. There's kind of a delicate balance in a race on Novus between getting too many items and not having enough. Either one can actually hurt your race performance considerably. Looks like Murph is feeling the need to do a little bit of damage boosting and not having a whole lot of luck getting that set up. So now he's going for the traditional ice beam climb.
So now, interestingly, Jack here is going into Ridley, the first player to do that, and they might find some things in there that could change the race for them. But we'll see what they happen to find.
And Murph is now into the secret area. By secret, I mean that it's not exactly obvious that it's there. might actually see a major change in how this race has appeared to going in the next minute or two here, depending on how Jack continues. This actually looks like he might actually have the first true boss kill coming up before too long.
Yeah, and I know Jack might not feel so confident given his current energy and the difficulty of Ridley, but we'll see how he does against him.
Well, he certainly feels confident enough to make an attempt at it, so that says a lot right there. Interesting. That's not something I'd ever considered. You can actually turn off screw attack in midair.
So Murphy is taking on the required Great Fight here. Looks like he's trying to strat for a faster kill, but taking a lot of damage in the process.
Yeah, this is something you'd only try if you had a bunch of energy tanks. And it looks like Murph is ahead now. Not even going for the reloads. Probably plans to respawn as soon as he's done grabbing the high jump.
Mhm.
High jump will certainly make it a little easier to get through some of the parts of Norfair and Hideout too. Still very much anybody's game at this point.
Yeah, it looks like Sala's going back through criteria, trying to pick up some new items with their found ice beam. And Murph's headed over to Ridley, it seems.
Absolutely not unexpected. This is basically what he needs to do to consolidate his lead and win this one. Considering the mix of gear that he is running right now, I would say that he actually has pretty good odds of winning this one. By this one, I mean the fight against Ridley. I have a technical question for you.
Yeah,
Is the timer dependent on actual frames, or is that being run as per clock?
it is determined by game frames.
Okay.
And of course, there are some things in which the timer pauses for, like item pickups. And it doesn't run, the clock doesn't run during pause menu. So if you need to check the map,
Right.
you,
The reason I asked in this particular case is that if it was based on frames as compared to real time, that changes how you look at it compared to if it's based on real time constantly,
hmm,
where slowdown would actually hurt your run considerably.
yeah. Jack opting to go after the small Ridley here, probably hoping to find some item.
Unfortunately, what he got is probably not what he was hoping for.
Yeah.
Murph is nearly through to where he needs to be going next, so unless he makes a very serious mistake here shortly, I think we're going to be seeing him go up against Ridley here. The fact that he just turned on Screw Attack says a lot about that. Based on what I have seen so far in this race, I am fairly confident in saying there's really high odds that it's going to end up with the exact same spread as the previous race.
Hmm. Yeah, Jack is, looks like Jack's headed for, the larger Ridley there. Having some trouble finding the path. Maybe they're, I think he's probably more used to having bombs at this point in the race.
Jack and Murph being in pretty much the same area definitely makes it more interesting watching their different approaches to it. But it does seem that Murph has the better gear for handling this situation. And there's the bombs.
So given that bombs were inside of Ridley and high jump was inside of Craig, that means that it was really forced that players would have to acquire Ice Beam and Wave Beam in order to enter those areas.
Thankfully, those were not terribly hard to find.
Yeah.
I've seen seeds on Zebus where everything was in the most pessimistic location possible, which can be very, very frustrating. The way Jack is shooting, I can say that he probably plays fighting games quite a bit. He's certainly showing some mashing skills.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that Sawa still hasn't managed to get a major boss kill yet, that's probably going to come back and bite him.
Yeah. I remember before the race, Sawa said it's been a while since he done a run on Novus, and I noticed he's having a bit of trouble finding some of the paths and items, so that's fair, understandable.
And there it is. Right, if you don't keep practicing, if you're not going into this sort of thing consistently, or at least refreshing yourself, you are going to find yourself struggling a bit.
So Mark Mario really having a pretty optimal loadout for this fight. Uh, Screw attack can help a lot in dodging the attacks, and Varia on top of that. So we'll see how it goes.
He's holding up pretty well. Going in with 5 energy tanks certainly didn't hurt.
On the other hand, Jack seems to be approaching the boss room, but with substantially less energy, though quite a bit more missiles, which can help to take the boss out faster. I think this might be a all-in moment for Jack here.
Make or break. This particular fight, Super Ridley, can be really interesting in online cooperative sessions.
Yeah.
Especially with shared health, where Ridley's big scrape attack can actually kill the entire player set in a matter of seconds. And Burf gets the kill on Ridley.
Yeah.
Only gets another energy tank for it, but that gives him 6, which gives him good odds of being able to get through through Turian.
Mm-hmm. And on the other side of the world, we have Sawa, who's going through Brinstar for the first time, and they've nabbed Varia suit. So that'll help them get through a lot of this upcoming areas for them.
At this point, I would say that I'm feeling fairly confident that we can call it for Murph already. The question is whether Jack or Sawa is going to be able to get the second place slot. And I'm going to say that based on what we're seeing right now, Jack is taking some risks, so there is a real possibility he might end up costing himself fairly big, but we won't know until he actually gets to that point.
Yeah. With the amount of items that Sawa is picking up, and now Sawa having Varia, whereas Jack doesn't. If Jack doesn't win this fight, it could be possible for Sawa to get back on track and be some competition.
There goes nothing. That's a practice motion, if there ever was one. You can tell he's used to this fight.
Now, despite the difficulty of Ridley, there are a few safety straps that are especially important on the low percent runs. So if players are aware of it, they might be able to use that in a pinch, but it's not something everyone's practiced.
Watching this has given me an idea I should probably pass along your way. Oh! Didn't pan out for Jack.
Yeah, looks like Jack died to the grab attack, which is avoidable, though very difficult to avoid.
As long as Murph doesn't have any avoidable deaths against the Metroids in this area or against Mother Brain, he's got this one pretty well situated.
The Mother Brain fight, the second stage of it, requires about 80 missiles. So unless Murph can manage to do some farming after the first stage, the second stage will be a little bit more difficult. But I think with all the other items he has, it should be very good.
Farming will definitely eat time, but less than if he was playing it on the NES, let's just say.
Yeah.
As a fan of the original NES game, I can say there are a few things that I feel have been drastically improved by the time of Super Metroid, and replenishing stock is definitely one of those.
Looks like Jack's trying to get back into Ridley to attempt to fight again, but it's having a bit of trouble getting there using the shortcut. Requires some infinite bomb jumping, which I think the lag might be throwing Jack off on that timing.
Right, that's something we should definitely ask him about when this race is over, is how much that might have affected how it was going for him. If he's used to that, then that's one thing, but if he isn't, that's a completely different thing in general.
So I'll just throw this out here because it looks like we're getting close to the point where one of our runners is going to be finished, and I'll start doing an interview and wrapping up with that. But tomorrow evening, we're going to be having another race. This one is going to be with the Enigma planet of this game, which is a randomized world using player-designed rooms. So every world is going to have a different layout, and of course that means the racers, are going to have no idea where things are, and it'll be a lot more exploratory and really just a matter of who makes what routing choices. So tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. EST. If you're interested, you can tune in and check that race out.
All right, I assume you're going to be providing them a pre-created world for this?
Yeah, it'll be. I'll be generating the world just to make sure it's beatable and has a decent layout. But it'll be using rooms from several different creators who have designed rooms for the game.
And now Murph is at the final fight. This fight would be much more terrifying if he was running low energy tanks.
And it looks like Sawa's making his way to the required crate fight. If this goes smoothly, he'll have one boss down, whereas Jack doesn't. So it's still up to either as to who will come in second place, it looks like.
Yep, that's why I said earlier on this that despite how things appear, things are not so simple. You never know for sure how it's going to play out. On to the next phase. Meanwhile, Jack is attempting to work his way through, but This is definitely giving him a bit of trouble.
And with Mother Brain down, Murph just has the escape left.
This being slightly more complicated than the original NES Metroid, there's still a chance something can go really wrong here, but I would not put any betting odds on it. Jack's doing a bit of grinding before he goes in. With what he has, that makes perfect sense. And now he's making another shot at it. Will he be successful this time? Seems to be having a little more trouble with the pattern this time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's game for Murph. Or would be, but he's going for one last item on his way out.
Mm-hmm.
Probably just demonstrating to the crowds that he knows exactly what he's doing, and he is not worried one bit about that timer.
So we got two super boss fights going on here at the same time with Creed and Ridley.
And Jack couldn't quite pull it off. He's definitely struggling a little bit at this point.
Alright, we might see if it's possible to get Murph in for an interview here. We were having some technical difficulties earlier, so I'm gonna see if I can do anything about that.
All right, then. Sawa's continuing to fight his way through the crate fight. He's doing okay on energy and on missiles, so unless he makes a lot of mistakes, he should be okay. But he is taking some hits here, so that might be a little tighter of a squeeze than I originally was saying. His health definitely does not look good now, but he did manage to get through that. So that gamble did in fact pay off. Meanwhile, Jack has given up on the idea of going against Ridley first and is working his way back into the Friend Star area in order to follow the direction Sawa has gone. As of this point, I would definitely give advantage to Sawa, but it's still a very fluid situation as of now still. And Jack found the various suit. That might have made a big difference on how that fight with Ridley was going to go if he'd found that earlier. Now is working his way out. Jack is working his way in. That's one way to make sure you have enough missiles to continue the route you're going. Not sure I'd consider that the best timing for that, but it might actually play out better for him. Nice use of a mid-air jump combined with bombs to get around that. Now he's making a run for Kraid himself.
Yeah, Jack and Sawa now having very similar loadouts item-wise.
Noah has slightly less missiles, but that's not enough of a difference to be all that significant. If it ends up being a really close match with their next mini boss, then by all means that could make a difference, but I would say at 100 versus 90, that's not likely.
Probably not.
Never say never. And Jack got himself a little bit of a safety net. That's going to help him. Maybe not against Kraid, but I definitely think that's going to be a major improvement when he gets to Ridley. Sawa crosses the bridge area.
So Jack now has 5 E-tanks and various suits, so after he takes down Crate here, he should be able to get to Ridley and take on Ridley. Little to no problem.
Should, but he may be feeling a little stressed after the last couple of fights with Ridley. That may have an effect on his mental state enough to change how that fight goes.
It's true.
We'll see when he gets there. Meanwhile, Sawa is making good forward progress. I would go so far as to say, as of right now, that it definitely looks like Sawa has a fairly commanding lead, unless Sawa makes a very, very bad mistake in this upcoming area.
One
And
advantage.
Jack is now there.
One advantage is Jack has bombs because he went to Ridley first. So if he wants to, he can go back and get that E-tank. That was an elevator area. Whereas I don't think any of the other racers have had that opportunity.
Jack taking advantage of screw attack to keep himself from taking hits he doesn't really need to take. It definitely isn't hurting his situation. Now he's going to try to go in and damage boost himself through. Wasn't able to quite pull it off correctly, but he did get a few hits in. So we're doing a little bit of grinding. Probably not feeling too great about the amount of ammo he has. And Jack has his first mini boss down.
Yeah, and looks like he's gonna check this item up here. He might be happy that he did.
He's definitely going to feel happy about having that. High jump will make it a little less necessary for him to be damage boosting and ice climbing. And Sawa is right at the key point. Everything hinges on what's going to happen in the next couple of rooms here. Meanwhile, Jack is attempting to sprint back full speed to make another shot at Ridley. Will he get there before Sawa gets the kill? That's the big question.
Yeah, Sala definitely has an advantage as far as being there already, but it looks like Sala's having a little trouble finding all the paths, so that might be the determining factor.
It often can be, yes. Looks like he's found the next route he needs to be going through, so. Going for a little bit of grinding. Meanwhile, Jack isn't too far behind.
In the vastest part of space where silence grows, I'm moving grace, but
And Sawa managed to get the bombs, which will help a bit.
And with that, I think all of the racers got all the major items.
Indeed, at this point, I would say that while there's still a few energy tanks left to go for, they have the bulk of what they need. And it's going to be all about who knows the route and has the skill to get through it best. Jack might just be able to turn this one around.
Yeah, he was able to pull off the shortcut to get through part of Ridley. And I think he's maybe going to try to do another shortcut up here a little further. So that'll get him pretty close on par with Sawa.
Sawa's now at the Ridley fight. This is the key point. If Sawa makes a mistake on this fight and has to respawn, that would definitely hurt his odds. And there's the damaging wall scrape, and nobody loves that.
Yeah, it looks like Sawa's going for a very aggressive strat here, which will cause him to get a few extra wall grabs, but might be the way to go with the amount of energy he has.
Well, I would say I agree, except where his health is right now makes me a little, well, nope, he pulled it off. That's it right there. Jack's a bit behind still, but gonna be a bit of a nail biter.
Yeah, it's looks like it's gonna be all about Torian now, who can get through that the smoothest.
Sawa used the respawn trick to cut a whole bunch of backtracking. That is, of course, one of the most important techniques you pick up for racing in this. I was definitely not pausing to go back and check the map, so he seems to be pretty confident on where he needs to go. Meanwhile, Jack is going for a revenge run on Ridley after getting torn up a bit earlier. Will the 5 energy tanks be enough for his fighting style on this? We'll see in the next minute. He's definitely being aggressive with it, taking more hits than he's probably comfortable with, but much like Sawa, it might work out for him.
And there's a kill on Ridley, so Jack is going to be headed to Torian here in just a moment.
They're both making a run for Turian as fast as they can. Sawa's got a bit of a lead. But if he dies anywhere in here, that may be just enough time for Jack to get that commanding lead he needs to be able to win this one. If Jack was anywhere around 5 minutes worse than where he is right now, I would say that it was pretty much in the bag. But with where they are respectively, I would definitely not want to make that kind of a claim yet.
You know, you bring up a good point too that Jack's game timer is actually a bit farther behind uh, than Sawa.
You are right. The slowdown has had a major impact on that.
Now, some of that could be pause time, but I do think that most of it has been lag. So it's something we'll have to consider depending on how close this race ends up being.
Based on where they are on the timer, Jack definitely is actually winning this one, but honestly, if he wins with the amount of lag he has, there are some questions to be asked about how that's going to be handled within the rules.
Yeah. On the positive side, I think all the racers are doing this mostly for fun, so I don't
Right.
think there'll be any hurt feelings, whatever decision is.
Right. By no means am I also accusing Jack of cheating or anything like that. There are a lot of reasons that slowdown like this can occur that are not necessarily related to deliberate attempts to slow the game down.
Hmm.
That definitely hurt Sawa a bit there. More in time than anything else. And Sawa is now in the final hallway. That was a little bit of a tight squeeze there. That Metroid nearly had him. Surprised he's not shooting through to freeze the Metroid first.
Yeah, that is one of the advantages of having a wave beam at this point.
There you go. Just like that. Now he wants to position something where he can freeze an enemy and be in the right position to attack. At least that would be the easiest solution, and he's got it.
Looks like Sala's not intending to do any sort of farming to have those extra missiles against the second phase, which will mean that this part will take a little bit longer, but should still be fine.
Right. You don't have to have missiles, but they certainly help. It takes considerably longer. Phase 1 is down on Sawa's side. Let's see if I can actually get a good look at the timers between them. It's like 48 minutes for Jack, almost 49, if I can read that correctly. It's a little blurry.
Yeah, it looks like almost 49 on Jackson.
Meanwhile, Sawa is sitting at 107. This is playing out. I think Jack is going to win this one just based on timer.
So I was cutting it a little close here on health. He's run out of missiles, so he's relying on the wave beam here. And he still has about 30 or 40 damage that's going to be forced on next hyper beam shot.
Right, if he takes any more damage here while getting prepared for that last impact, that's going to really hurt him. Or rather, I should say, hurt his odds of actually getting through this in one piece. But there it is. Tight squeeze. Now he just needs... Yep. Jack's right behind him. Although technically he's actually in the lead. Now both of them are going to need to make their escape. If Jack comes out with more energy, that might help some. Sawa's health is a little bit low. If he takes any real damage on his way back out, that might be a problem, but not very likely.
Yeah.
It's not like trying to fight an army of the space pirates on your way out in Zero Mission.
Yeah, there's actually no enemies. The only lava is pretty far off the escape, so it's not too much chance of getting any damage.
Maybe when you add your next new area, you can put in a golden chorizo fight right in the middle of the escape sequence. I'm sure people will love that.
Yep, there's certainly a lot of possibilities for what could be done there.
Jack's doing pretty good for health. He's used up all of his missiles, as you'd expect. unless he has to respawn, it looks like he's finishing with a 100 maximum. Sawa has completed it. Let's see that game time. And that's 110.35, it appears.
Yeah, let's see if we can get them in for a interview here in a moment.
Right. Jack isn't too far behind, so we can drag all three in for interviews right after we're done. I'm sure they're going to have plenty to say about their given routes on this. Like most randomizer games, there is a large element of luck. Certainly doesn't hurt to know where you're going, what items are normally where. But if you take the wrong routes because you think the item's somewhere it isn't, that will definitely add to your time for completion. And he's coming out with 1 energy tank and 56, so a bit more health than Sawa had. Looks like 52 minutes, more or less. This computer is certainly struggling under the load.
Hopefully the escape doesn't end with this computer blowing up.
That would certainly make Metroid Planets a little more notorious. If you die in a game, your computer dies in real life.
Hey,
Hello, Sawa.
that was painful.
Nice job on your run, though.
110.41. That's not a bad time.
I spent an extra 12 minutes in criteria, around 20, from like 20 minutes to 32 minutes.
Yeah, you're doing some extra item checks.
Would you argue that that was the part that may have made the most effect on how your race came out?
Well, it was that, dying in Norfair,